The wind howled like a living thing that night, tearing through the mountains of Banff National Park. Snow whipped across the road in furious spirals, erasing everything in white. And in the middle of that storm, a 5-year-old girl was walking barefoot through the drifts, her tiny arms clutching 2 swaddled bundles to her chest. Her name was Emma Brooks, and if she stopped moving, her baby brothers would die. Tell me, have you ever seen a child fight the cold like a soldier guarding her last hope? Stay with me, because what's about to happen inside that mountain mansion will break your heart and then mend it in a way you'll never forget. Emma's breath came out in short, panicked bursts that turned to frost before her eyes. Each step sank into snow that nearly reached her knees. Her jacket was too thin, her mittens soaked through. Beneath the blanket pressed to her chest, the twins Sam and Simon whimpered weakly. Their tiny fingers were stiff and pale, their cries fading into the roar of the wind. "Shh, we're almost there," Emma whispered, though she couldn't see anything ahead but endless white. The sound of her own voice kept her from collapsing. She was 5 years old, but tonight she was the only adult left in her family. Somewhere behind her, the cabin they had been hiding in was already buried. Her mother had said she'd come back soon, just needed to find help, but she never did. The last thing her mother had said was, "If something happens, find your Uncle Alex. He'll keep you safe." So Emma walked north toward the faint memory of a big house her mother had once described as the glass palace on the hill. She didn't know where that was exactly, only that if she stopped, her brother's breathing would stop too. The wind grew wilder, clawing at her face like knives. Snowflakes stung her eyes, but ahead she saw a flicker of gold, a light faint but real. Her small heart hammered. Maybe it was the house. Maybe it was warmth. She stumbled forward and half running, half crawling through the storm. Her foot caught on a frozen branch. She fell, twisting to shield the babies from the impact. Pain shot through her knee, but she didn't cry. She only looked down at the twins and whispered, "Don't be scared." "Sam, Simon," Mommy said. "Uncle Alex is good. He'll help us. He has to." By the time she reached the iron gates, Emma could barely stand. Her legs trembled so hard they might snap. The mansion beyond looked unreal, its windows glowing like golden eyes through the snow. A long driveway wound upward to a massive glass entryway. She started climbing 1 step at a time, her small boots leaving faint prints that were instantly swallowed by the wind. Halfway up, her vision blurred. Everything tilted sideways. She pressed her cheek to the twins' heads, feeling only the faintest warmth. "Please," she whispered to no one, just a little more. Inside the mansion, Dr. Alex Cole had just poured himself a glass of whiskey when the sound came, a faint, desperate knocking beneath the howl of the storm. He almost ignored it. No one came here this late, not in weather like this. But something about that sound, sharp and hollow, made his pulse tighten. When he opened the door, the wind burst in like an explosion, scattering snow across the marble floor. And there, collapsed at his feet, was a tiny girl, her hair frozen in strands of gold, her face blue with cold, clutching 2 motionless infants wrapped in a blanket. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Years in the operating room had taught him to control panic, but this was something else. He dropped to his knees, pulling the children into his arms. "Maria!" he shouted toward the kitchen. "Call emergency services." Now, the housekeeper came running, froze at the sight, and gasped. "Dear God, they're babies." Alex stripped off his coat and wrapped it around Emma, his fingers trembling as he felt for the infant's pulses. Weak, but there. Still there. As he carried them inside, something small and cold slipped from the edge of the blanket, a silver bracelet, etched with fading letters. He caught it instinctively, and the world seemed to tilt. The engraving read, "Property of Laura Brooks." His heart stopped. That name, that impossible name, The sister he hadn't spoken to in years, the sister he had sworn he'd never forgive. The fire roared to life as Maria hurried back with warm towels and milk. Alex laid the twins by the hearth, checking their breathing, his mind spinning. How could this be Laura's children, his niece and nephews? The oldest girl stirred lips, trembling. Her eyes fluttered open, bright green, the same shade Laura used to have. She looked up at him, dazed but determined. "Are you Uncle Alex?" she whispered. Mommy said, "You'd help us." The words cut through him like a blade. For the first time in years, Dr. Alex Cole felt his composure break. He gathered the children closer, the firelight flickering over his face as he said softly, "You're safe now, sweetheart. I've got you." Outside, the storm raged on, swallowing the world in white. Inside the mansion, for the first time in a decade, the silence was broken by the sound of life, a small cry, a shuddering breath, a whisper of hope. Alex didn't yet know the full story behind the children's arrival or the heartbreaking secret that waited in the days ahead. But as he looked down at the girl who had walked through the snow to save her brothers, one truth hit him harder than the cold ever could love, even when frozen and forgotten has a way of finding its way home. The night had nearly swallowed the world when Dr. Alex Cole carried the 3 small bodies into his home. The fire snapped to life as Maria Torres, his longtime housekeeper, rushed forward with blankets and warm milk. She froze at the sight of the little girl's face, pale lips, trembling eyelids fluttering, and the 2 tiny boys pressed close against her chest. "Sweet Lord," she whispered, "they're just babies." Alex's hands moved with the precision of muscle memory, but his heart pounded like it hadn't in years. "We need to get their temperature up now," he said. Hot towels, heating pads, anything. Within minutes, the grand living room of his glass mansion, once cold and silent, turned into a field hospital. The snowstorm outside pressed against the windows, a ghostly reminder that death still lingered beyond the glass. Emma Brooks lay wrapped in wool blankets on the couch, her hair damp from melted snow. Her tiny fingers still curled around the edge of the blanket where her brothers lay. The twins' skin was pale, their breathing shallow. Alex worked in silence, warming milk on the stove while Maria rubbed the baby's hands and feet. It had been years since he'd practiced medicine, but instinct overruled hesitation. He inserted a small thermometer under one infant's arm, then another. 73 degrees, he muttered. "They're hypothermic, but alive." Maria handed him another towel. He rubbed the baby's arms until faint cries filled the air. Those cries, thin, desperate, alive, broke something inside him. He felt an ache he hadn't allowed himself to feel since his wife's funeral a decade ago. When Emma stirred, her voice was so soft he almost missed it. "My brothers, are they okay?" Her eyes, green and luminous, even in the firelight, searched his face for truth. "They're safe now," Alex said, kneeling beside her. "You're safe too." Her small hand gripped his wrist. "Mommy said you'd help us." He froze his pulse, stuttering. "What did you say?" Mommy said. She whispered again, her words halting. "Uncle Alex will help us. She told me to find you." For a long moment he couldn't breathe. Uncle Alex? The name struck like thunder in his chest. He looked down at the little girl's face, saw the faint curve of a smile that was achingly familiar. His sister Laura had the same smile when they were young, the same stubborn jaw, the same warmth in her eyes before life hardened both of them. "Maria," he said quietly, "get me the blanket." She lifted it gently from the floor, and something small slipped out, a silver bracelet, dull from wear, engraved with words that made Alex's vision blur. "Property of Laura Brooks." The sound of the storm outside seemed to fade. He turned the bracelet over in his hand, tracing each letter with his thumb. Laura, the sister he had once loved fiercely, and then lost to pride and anger, the one he had sworn never to see again, after she walked away with a man he couldn't stand. He had told himself he was done with family. And yet here it was, family literally dropped at his doorstep by fate and snow. Maria's eyes welled. Is it? Her Alex nodded slowly, his throat tight. It has to be. The firelight flickered against the glass walls, and for the first time in years, the house felt human again, alive, imperfect, trembling with emotion. Alex sat near the couch watching the children sleep. Every few minutes he reached out to touch the twins' hands, checking for warmth, listening for the rhythm of their breathing. Emma, curled beneath a thick blanket, slept with her hand still holding his sleeve, as if afraid he'd vanish if she let go. He stayed like that until dawn, staring into the fire, the weight of guilt settling deeper into his chest. How long had Laura been out there? Why hadn't she called? What kind of brother had he become, one so buried in his own success that he didn't notice when his only sister disappeared? When the first light of morning slipped through the tall windows, the storm had passed. The mountains stood calm under a sky washed clean. Emma awoke to the scent of warm pancakes and coffee. She blinked, disoriented by the vastness of the room and the sound of crackling wood. Maria smiled softly from the kitchen. "Morning, sweetheart. You hungry?" Emma nodded timidly. "My brothers. Sleeping like angels," Maria said, gesturing toward the couch where Sam and Simon lay bundled together, cheeks pink with new warmth. Alex approached slowly, a plate in one hand, a mug in the other. He set the plate before her, pancakes cut into small pieces, syrup on the side. "Eat," he said gently. "You've earned it." Emma looked around the grand space glass walls, white marble floors, a piano in the corner, and frowned. "It's too big," she whispered. "Too quiet." He glanced around, realizing she was right. The place had been a museum of solitude for too long. It was quiet, he said, but not anymore. After breakfast, Emma followed him to the window. The mountains stretched endlessly, sunlight spilling across the snow. "It's pretty," she said, pressing her hand against the glass. "Mommy said you liked the snow. She said you lived in a house made of light." Alex's breath caught. She said that Emma nodded. She said you were mad at her. But she also said you'd forgive her one day. The words hit harder than any storm. He turned away, jaw-tight, eyes burning. Forgiveness. That was the word he had buried with his past. But looking at Emma, the courage in her small frame, the fire in her eyes, he wondered if forgiveness had just walked through his front door disguised as a child. Later that morning, as Maria bathed the twins, Alex sat by the fire again, turning the silver bracelet in his hands. The inscription shimmered faintly in the light. He whispered to himself, "Laura, what happened to you?" The question echoed through the room like a prayer. Outside, the world was still, the air clear after the storm. Inside, for the first time in a decade, the billionaire who had thought he needed nothing realized he was missing everything that mattered. He didn't know it yet, but the moment Emma Brooks crossed his threshold, his life had changed forever. The mansion that once stood as a monument to his success had just become the starting point of redemption, and the beginning of a story far colder and far more beautiful than the storm that brought her there. Sunlight spilled through the glass walls of the Cole mansion, soft and golden after the long storm. The world outside glittered quiet and clean, but inside the house the air was heavy with unanswered questions. Dr. Alex Cole sat at the long dining table, a cup of untouched coffee in his hands, staring at the small silver bracelet beside it, the one engraved with property of Laura Brooks. Across from him, Emma was sketching on a notepad with crayons Maria had found in a drawer. Her small hands moved with focus, her tongue poking out as she drew. When she finished, she held it up proudly. "This is Mommy," she said. The stick figure had blonde hair, a smile, and 3 small children beside her. Alex swallowed hard. "That's beautiful," he said, quietly. She was pretty, Emma added matter-of-factly. She used to sing when she brushed my hair. She tilted her head. Do you know where she is? The question hit him like a blow. He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm trying to find her, sweetheart. He had already spent the morning calling hospitals in Vancouver, Seattle, and Calgary. No one had admitted a woman named Laura Brooks. Each, I'm sorry, sir, cut deeper than the one before. Maria brought over fresh coffee and a sandwich for Emma, murmuring to Alex as she set the tray down, "You'll find her." I can feel it. But Alex wasn't sure. The last time he'd seen his sister, they'd shouted at each other in that very foyer. He had accused her of throwing away her future. She'd screamed that he didn't understand love. He'd slammed the door and sworn never to open it again. And now, years later, it had opened on its own to a child begging for help. After lunch, Emma tugged on his sleeve. Mommy said there was a lady who helped her. Sometimes, she said, at a place with papers everywhere. Her name was Jasmine, I think. She had hair like a sunflower. Alex froze. A social worker? I don't know. Emma shrugged. She gave Mommy warm tea when it rained. He pulled out his phone immediately and began searching. Within an hour, he had a name, Jasmine Lee, a social worker in Vancouver who specialized in family assistance. He dialed her number. The voice that answered was calm and cautious. "This is Jasmine. This is Dr. Alex Cole," he said. "I'm looking for someone you may have worked with, Laura Brooks." There was a long pause. "You're Laura's brother." Jasmine's tone softened. "We've been trying to reach her. She disappeared about 3 weeks ago. Her condition was worsening. She wouldn't go to the hospital because she didn't want to be separated from her children." Alex's throat went dry. "What condition? Leukemia," Jasmine said quietly. "She was very ill, Dr. Cole. But she was strong, too strong, maybe. She kept saying her brother would forgive her one day." He leaned back in his chair, eyes closing. Guilt settled over him like a second skin. All the years of silence. All the letters he'd never written. Jasmine continued. "We last saw her near a small boarding house on the east side of Seattle. She left before the rent expired. I can give you the address. Please do," Alex said. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. When he hung up, Emma was standing near the window, staring out at the snow. "Uncle Alex," she asked softly, "is Mommy sick?" He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "She's been sick for a while, but we're going to find her, I promise." Emma nodded solemnly. "Then we should hurry. She gets cold fast." That night, Alex couldn't sleep. He sat by the fireplace long after everyone else had gone to bed, the light flickering across his face. The bracelet lay on the table beside him, a tiny gleaming reminder of everything he'd lost and everything he had to fix. He thought about Laura as a child, racing him up the snowy hills, laughing so loud it echoed across the valley. She'd been fearless, tender-hearted. How had they drifted so far apart? At dawn, he loaded his SUV with blankets, diapers, and supplies for the twins. Maria insisted on coming, saying, "You'll need someone to help with the babies." Emma climbed into the back seat, clutching her mother's drawing like it was a map. "I remember something else," she said as they drove through the mountain pass. "There's a cafe Mommy liked. It had blue walls and smelled like cinnamon. It's near the river." Alex glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "A blue cafe by the river," he repeated, committing it to memory. Hours later, they crossed into Washington, the snow thinning as they neared Seattle. The city rose in the distance, a web of glass and steel shimmering under pale sunlight. They began asking questions, showing Laura's photo to people in small shops and shelters. Most shook their heads, but one elderly woman at a corner market pointed toward a riverside cafe. You mean the Blue Cup, she said. She used to come by, sweet woman, always asking if they were hiring. When they arrived, the cafe looked exactly as Emma had described it. Blue walls, the smell of cinnamon, and coffee in the air. Inside, a young barista recognized the photo immediately. Yeah, she said softly. She came here a few weeks ago, looked real tired, sat by the window watching the river, said she was waiting for someone. Alex's voice barely came out. Did she say who? She just said, my brother will come for me, he promised once. For a moment, he couldn't speak. He turned away, staring at the window seat where Laura had once sat. Outside, the river glinted under the afternoon sun. She had believed in him, even after all those years, even when he'd given her every reason not to. Back in the car, Emma leaned against him, sleepy but hopeful. We'll find her soon, she murmured. Mommy always said good people find their way back. He looked down at her, this brave little girl, who had carried her brothers through a snowstorm, and felt something shift inside him. The mansion, the wealth, the titles, they all meant nothing now. What mattered was the family he'd forgotten, the sister he'd failed, and the promise he was finally ready to keep. As the city lights came alive across the water, Alex whispered to himself, Hold on, Laura. I'm coming. Beside him, Emma stirred and smiled faintly in her sleep, as if she'd heard him. The twins' soft breathing filled the car, the rhythm of life that had returned to him out of the cold. Somewhere in the city, a woman named Laura Brooks was waiting, and for the first time in years, Alex Cole felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. The hospital hallways smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain. Alex's shoes squeaked against the floor as he hurried behind the nurse who led the way. He clutched his coat tightly, his heart pounding in his chest. Behind him, Emma held Maria's hand, her other hand wrapped around her mother's drawing. Is Mommy here? She whispered. Alex didn't trust his voice, so he only nodded. When they reached room 314, the nurse pushed the door open quietly. Inside, sunlight filtered through half-closed blinds, casting soft stripes across the white sheets. A frail woman lay there, her blonde hair thin, her skin pale. But when her eyes opened, those familiar green eyes that mirrored Emma's, Alex forgot to breathe. Laura, he whispered. Her lips parted in disbelief. Alex. For a moment, time collapsed, years of silence, pride, and regret melting into air. Emma dropped Maria's hand and ran forward, her small feet padding against the linoleum. Mommy, she cried. Laura struggled to sit up, her trembling arms reaching for her daughter. Emma clung to her, burying her face in her mother's shoulder, as tears streamed down both their cheeks. My baby, Laura murmured, her voice hoarse. You found me. Alex stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move, unable to speak. When Laura looked up at him again, her gaze softened and her lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. You came, she whispered. You really came. He stepped forward at last, his throat tightening. I should have come a long time ago. Laura's hand trembled as she reached for him. We were so young, Alex. We said terrible things. I said terrible things he corrected. You were right about love, and I was too proud to see it. She let out a weak laugh that turned into a cough. Pride's a funny thing. Keeps you warm until it kills you. He pulled a chair close and sat beside her, taking her cold hand in his. I'm sorry, Laura, for everything, for not being there when you needed me most. Her fingers squeezed his weakly. You're here now. That's all that matters. For a while, no one spoke. The steady hum of machines filled the silence, mixed with the soft sounds of Emma humming to the twins in the corner who were bundled in warm blankets Maria had brought. The little family, broken, scattered, and then reunited, seemed to draw warmth from each other. Laura studied her brother quietly. They look like you, Alex said softly, nodding toward the babies. They have his eyes, she replied, her voice suddenly tight. Alex hesitated. Emma mentioned their father. Laura turned her gaze to the window where rain streaked down the glass. David Allen, she said bitterly. He was charming once, said all the right things, but when the money ran out, so did he. The night he hit me, that was the night I left. Alex's fists clenched. He hit you. She nodded. More than once. I didn't want to believe it. I thought I could fix him. But then Emma saw. And that was the last time. He rose from his chair, pacing the small space. He's not going near you or the kids again. I'll make sure of that. Alex, she said gently, don't waste your anger on him. Just promise me you'll take care of them. All three. He stopped pacing. Don't talk like that. You're going to beat this. We'll get the best doctors, Alex. Her voice, soft but firm, cut through his determination. I know what's coming. I've made my peace with it. He shook his head, his voice breaking. No, not again. I already lost you once. I can't do it twice. She smiled faintly, brushing a tear from his cheek. Then, don't lose me. Keep me here. She gestured toward Emma and the twins in them. In every story you tell, every birthday you show up for. He couldn't speak. He just held her hand tighter as if that alone could keep her anchored to the world. A soft knock interrupted them. A nurse peeked in. Dr. Cole, there's a man asking to see Mrs. Brooks. Says he's her husband. Alex's blood ran cold. Laura's eyes widened. No, she whispered. The door opened before Alex could answer, and David Allen stepped inside immaculate as ever. Tailored coat, polished shoes, and that same easy smile that once fooled everyone. Laura, he said smoothly, you look thinner. Alex was on his feet instantly. Get out. David smirked. Always the hero, huh, Dr. Funny? I didn't see you when she was starving in a motel. Laura's breathing quickened. David, please just go. Not without my kids, he said, his tone sharp now. You took them. You ran. You think you can hide them here in your rich brother's fortress. Alex stepped closer, his voice low but dangerous. You don't have any rights here. Not anymore. David scoffed. I'm their father. And I'm the man who will make sure you never hurt them again. Alex shot back. The tension crackled like electricity. Nurses gathered in the doorway, ready to intervene. Laura's voice broke through weak but steady. David, look at them. Look at what you did to this family. You lost your right to call yourself their father the night you raised your hand against me. For once, David had no comeback. His mouth opened, then shut. He turned to leave, but not before muttering, "You'll regret this." The door closed behind him with a hollow sound. Alex exhaled shakily, his anger giving way to exhaustion. He turned back to Laura, who had slumped against the pillows, drained. "It's over," he said quietly. "You're safe now." She smiled faintly. "For now. But promise me, Alex, if something happens, promise me you'll keep them together. Don't let them grow up alone." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. "I promise. I swear it." Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle. Inside, Emma climbed onto the bed beside her mother, holding one tiny twin in each arm. Laura looked at them, her eyes soft, her face peaceful for the first time in years. "See," Mommy Emma whispered. "We're all here. You don't have to be scared anymore." Laura's hand trembled as she brushed her daughter's cheek. "No, sweetheart," she said softly. "Not anymore." And for the first time since the storm, the Cole family sat together, not perfect, not whole, but finally home. Snow blanketed the valley once again, but this time it didn't feel like a threat. The storm that had nearly taken 3 lives had long passed, and the mansion that once stood as a monument to silence and regret now pulsed with laughter, light, and the sound of small feet on marble floors. It was the first winter since Laura Brooks had passed away peacefully in her sleep, holding Emma's hand, whispering that love was the only thing worth carrying through the cold. Dr. Alex Cole had kept that promise. He had buried his sister under a birch tree on the edge of his property, overlooking the frozen lake she used to love. Every morning, he brought a cup of coffee and talked to her like she was still there. Sometimes he swore he could hear her voice in the wind, teasing him for being sentimental. It had been 6 months since that day, and though the ache remained, the house had changed. Life had returned. Emma, now 6, ran through the halls, chasing her brothers Sam and Simon, who were crawling fast enough to make Maria laugh until she cried. The once sterile rooms were filled with color drawings taped to walls, wooden toys scattered across the floor, and the faint scent of cinnamon from the kitchen where Maria baked more often than she rested. Alex stood by the large window of the living room, watching the 3 children play in the snow outside. They were building a snowman, bundled in matching red coats. Emma was bossing her brothers around, explaining how Mommy said, "The nose has to be straight, not crooked like last time." He smiled, his chest tightening with affection and longing. For a long time he had thought the mansion's silence was strength. He had thought shutting out the world meant peace. But now, peace was this, the sound of children's laughter echoing against the walls, the chaos of family filling every empty corner. That evening, the sky began to change. The air outside shimmered with streaks of green and violet. The northern lights had come early, stretching across the sky like paintbrush strokes of heaven. Alex called out to the kids, "Come inside, you'll freeze." But Emma only laughed. "Uncle Alex, look, the sky's dancing." He stepped out into the snow, breath visible in the cold air. The lights rippled above them, and for a brief moment the world seemed to stop. Emma took his hand, her mitten pressing against his palm. "Mommy said, if you see the lights, it means angels are watching," she said softly. Alex knelt so he was eye level with her. "Then your mom's watching right now," he said, "and she's proud of you." Emma looked up at him, eyes glistening. "Do you think she misses us?" He hesitated, feeling that familiar lump in his throat. "Every day, but I think she's happy knowing you're safe." The twins gurgled, reaching for the lights as if they could grab the colors. Maria stood by the doorway, wrapped in a shawl, her face lit by the glow. "She'd be proud of you too, Dr. Cole," she said. "You kept your promise." He didn't answer. He only looked at the sky, feeling Laura's presence in every breath of wind that brushed against his cheek. The guilt had lessened, replaced by something quieter gratitude. Over the following months, the house transformed further. Alex had one wing redesigned into a children's library, complete with beanbag shelves of storybooks and a mural of a bright blue sky that Emma had painted herself. The nursery became a classroom where she learned to read aloud to her brothers. The medical office he'd once used for business calls now housed framed drawings, stick figures labeled Mommy, Uncle, Alex, Maria, and 3 smiling children holding hands beneath the words, "Our Family." At night, when the twins had fallen asleep and the house grew still again, Alex would often sit by the fire with Emma curled beside him. She'd tell him stories her mother used to make up about princes who weren't brave, but learned to be about lost travelers who found home again. Mommy said stories fix the broken parts, she'd say. He believed that now. One afternoon, months after Laura's passing, Alex received an envelope postmarked from the city. Inside was a letter from Jasmine Lee, the social worker who had once helped Laura. It contained a single sheet of paper and a photograph. The photo showed Laura sitting on a park bench, Emma asleep in her lap, the twins bundled beside her. The note beneath it read, "She talked about you every visit. She never stopped believing you'd forgive her." Alex stared at the photo for a long time, the room blurring as tears welled. He placed the picture on the mantel above the fireplace beside a framed handprint of the children. That night, he gathered Emma and the twins by the fire. "Your mom wanted me to tell you something," he began. Emma looked up curious. She said, "The past is just a shadow. What matters is where you stand when the sun rises again." Emma tilted her head thoughtful. "Then, we're in the sun now, right?" He smiled. "Yes, right where we belong." The twins clapped at his words, babbling happily, and he laughed a sound that felt new, unburdened. Later, after tucking the children into bed, Alex stepped outside onto the balcony. The snow glowed under the moonlight. The mountains rose dark and majestic in the distance. Above them, the aurora shimmered again, green ribbons weaving through the stars. He whispered into the cold night, "You were right, Laura. Family isn't about blood, it's about showing up when it matters, and I'll spend the rest of my life showing up for them." A gust of wind stirred the trees, and for a fleeting second he thought he heard her laugh again, light, teasing, and free. When he returned inside, he paused by the children's room. Emma was sleeping with one arm draped over Sam and Simon, her face peaceful, her lips curved in a faint smile. The glow of a nightlight painted soft halos on their faces. He stood there for a long time, letting the warmth of that sight soak into him. The house was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet now, a living, breathing calm. The ghosts of regret were gone, replaced by the steady rhythm of love. In the months that followed, Alex began volunteering at the local hospital again, helping children without families. He named the outreach program the Laura Foundation. When people asked why, he'd smile and say, "Because one woman taught me that forgiveness can build homes stronger than walls ever could." And on clear nights when the northern lights returned, he would gather the children on the porch, wrap them in blankets, and point to the sky. "That's her," he'd whisper. "She's still watching." The mansion that had once been a fortress of solitude was now a home alive, imperfect, and full of second chances. And beneath the dancing lights of the northern sky, the Cole family, reborn through loss and love, finally found peace in the warmth that not even winter could steal. As the snow settled over Banff once more, the story of Emma, her twin brothers, and Dr. Alex Cole came full circle, a story that began in darkness and ended bathed in light. A 5-year-old girl's courage had led her through a blizzard and into the heart of a man who had long forgotten what it meant to love. The mansion that once symbolized isolation became a sanctuary of warmth and family. Through laughter, forgiveness, and loss, they built something stronger than blood, a home reborn not from perfection, but from compassion and second chances. Emma grew into a bright and fearless young girl, carrying her mother, Laura's tenderness, and her uncle's quiet strength. The twins thrived under the care of a man who had once believed his heart was frozen forever. Alex learned that redemption doesn't come from wealth or success, but from showing up day after day for the people who matter. The ghosts of regret still whispered, but they no longer ruled his heart. In their place stood gratitude, the kind that comes only from surviving the storm and choosing love anyway. This story reminds us that sometimes the greatest miracles arrive in the smallest hands, knocking at our door when we least expect them. It teaches us that forgiveness, though difficult, can thaw even the coldest winters of the soul. No matter how far we've drifted from the ones we love, it's never too late to reach out to make that call, to open that door. Life has a way of giving us second chances if we're brave enough to take them. So, as you finish this story, ask yourself who in your life deserves another chance, who might be waiting just beyond the storm for you to open the door. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment and share your thoughts. Your support helps us continue creating heartfelt stories that remind us all, no matter how cold the world may seem, love will always find its way home.